Well, I'm really excited to announce our guest today because, like Stephanie said, a lot of you have probably seen the big hole in the ground. Hopefully, you have up by Glen Oak Avenue and heard about or attended the groundbreaking ceremony on Tuesday. Very exciting, and Tom's going to talk about that, so I won't spend any time on that. But I do want to introduce Tom Cox. He is with OSF HealthCare. He's the Director of Medical Imaging and Outpatient Oncology for the St. Francis Medical Center. He is obviously responsible for medical imaging and radiation oncology, including the patient experience. But from my standpoint, Tom has been just invaluable in helping with the planning for the Cancer Institute from a foundation standpoint. The total cost of the Institute is about $237 million, and in the foundation, we've been charged with raising $100 million. And Tom has been just a wealth of knowledge and information and has spent time with me trying to explain all the different parts of it so that we as gift officers can talk to the community and those who are interested in supporting this wonderful project. So thank you for that, Tom. He's been very heavily involved on a planning side as well in helping to determine all the services that are going to be a part of that new Cancer Institute, both within the building and then outside in the communities. And just very briefly, personally, he and his wife, Andy, have 2 children. They have Abby, who lives in Chicago and works for Snapchat, which I feel like I should call her sometime because I don't even know what that is other than having heard of it. And then his son, Rich, graduated from Columbia College in Chicago and is working with the Morton School District. So with that, Tom Cox.
Thank you very much for inviting me. We are going to start off with a video.
Well, I'm Rennie Atterbury. I lost my mother and 2 wives to cancer, so I'm a little passionate about it. Cynthia was my high school and part of my college sweetheart. She was a very beautiful woman, very talented.
My name is Tom Hammerton. My wife passed away of uterine cancer 10 years ago. I think I knew I was going to marry Sherry the very first day that I met her. She had such a light, and everyone liked to be around her, so she was kind of the center of attention.
We came back from the winter in California, and she had a cough and a sore neck. We went to the doctors.
She was hospitalized for bleeding the last 3 months of pregnancy, and it was a very, very rough pregnancy.
To be a sole caregiver is both wonderful and horrible. It's rewarding to take care of people, but when you know they're going to die, it's not much fun, and you see people in pain and suffering.
Last 6 months, she never left a chair. Couldn't hold Jack, our youngest at the time either.
I said, she's in pain, we have to do something. And they said, well, if you give her any morphine, she won't be able to talk to you. She'll kind of go into a daze. And I said, I think you're missing the point.
Trying to be a husband to Sherry as I was going through this, and a father at the same time of 3 kids, I'm sure I did not do an adequate job. And then you're trying to figure out your purpose.
Imagine if suddenly the father, or even the mother, suddenly had cancer and they've got to take care of him. If the father has to work, who's going to take care of the mother? We need help there. We need to do something.
Sherry and I decided to go get treatment at Mayo up in Rochester.
Now stop and think now. It may be very good treatment, but you may have to live there for 6 months or a year. You got to give up your job. You have to rent an apartment. You got to live in a strange town. If you have cancer, you want to go halfway across the country to be treated by a place you don't know? Or would you want to be close to home, where your friends can come and see you?
Instead of Peoria patients with cancer going to Mayo, I want everybody coming here. Let's come here.
Hospitals are something that can provide economic life to this community again. It's going to provide innumerable jobs.
Because of the strong health care that we have already here, it's here. Let's grab it. I think this could be a crown jewel along with Children's Hospital.
to really see what this could mean for the community. It's something we just have to do. And if we do it right, I think people will get behind us and they'll get it done.
So that kind of emotion is what really drives me and drives our oncology team at St. Francis Medical Center. And it's something all of us, I'm sure, have felt to one degree or another. We all are affected by cancer, have been affected by cancer, will be affected by cancer. It's a pervasive disease that affects all of us in one way or another. There we go. It's working. Okay, so what drives us? This is a diagram we use that I really consider it our North Star at St. Francis to make sure our work is going the direction we want it to go, to make sure we're fully present throughout this cancer continuum at all aspects of the cancer continuum. Every one of us in this room are on the cancer continuum right now. When you are born, you are on the cancer continuum. You are born with a certain genetic burden of cancer risk. There are different mutations you could be born with and not even know it that make it highly likely you will get cancer. So from the beginning of our life, we have a relationship with this disease. And our goal is, again, to be fully present throughout this cancer continuum. And you see in the middle there, the community served by OSF HealthCare. We want to figuratively take the hand of our communities and walk through this continuum, hopefully keeping everyone at the prevention, education, assessing risk area. But should you need timely diagnosis and staging and evidence-based practice treatment, that we have the supportive services and the tools here to allow you to be treated with the best possible world-class care. So I just want to spend just a few moments kind of walking through here. I'm going to talk about our building, but to me, it's more than a building. The building represents something. It represents concepts, ideas, but really it represents to me a mission and a commitment to the community that we are going to do everything we can to lessen the burden of this disease on our community and raise an awareness of how we're going to go about and do that. Prevention and education. We felt a couple of years ago that we were a little lax in this area, and we really want to do more to help people understand that there are things we can do to limit our chances of getting cancer. A lot of people know, most everyone knows that smoking is a risk. So it's best if we can try not to ever smoke. It's best if we help people understand that you can quit smoking. Maybe lesser known is the importance of our kids getting HPV vaccinations. Another thing I want to talk about just a little bit is Dr. James McGee at St. Francis likes to say, and I've also read it in an article that I'm going to share some data with you from, that obesity is the new smoking when it comes to cancer risk. An NHS study in the UK showed that by the year 2030, there will be 100 new obesity-related cancers diagnosed every day. So by 2030, 100 new cancers diagnosed every day with some relation to obesity. So we're doing a lot of talk about diet and exercise. When I show you some pictures of the building, you're going to see a teaching kitchen in there. You're going to see a kitchen garden in the landscaped area, teaching kitchen garden. Assessing risk, I talked about genetic burden. We're working at OSF to start screening people at as many contact points as we can of what your family cancer history is, so that we can see if you might be at risk for genetic cancers, and to do some counseling, let you know that testing is available, and to do genetic testing. So We would like to screen, educate, test, and mitigate. And what do I mean by mitigate? If, for example, I have genetic testing and it shows I have Lynch syndrome, then there's a very good chance I'm going to get cancer during my lifetime. More of a chance it would be gastrointestinal cancer. So what does that mean? I'm not going to stop living my life. I'm not going to stay home and hope it doesn't happen. We are going to give you the tools to start your screenings in your 20s, your colonoscopies in your 20s, for example. Get them every 1 to 3 years. Right now, I get colonoscopies every 10 years. In about 6 months, I'm going to have another one. But help you understand that there are risk mitigation measures. We have a high-risk breast clinic where certain mutations show you have a really good chance that you're going to get breast cancer. Some women in this community have gotten bilateral mastectomies in a prophylactic manner, because of how high their risk is. So the idea is to help you understand your risk, counsel you about your risk, test, and then any mitigation we can do, any amped up testing we can do, try to do that. Screening and early detection. Everybody knows about mammography for the most part. There are many other cancer screenings that can be done. And out of this building, we're going to have screening days where we offer many types of free screenings. We do education, we offer lunch. We just try to have a day of cancer awareness and screening. To show you the power of screening, we started a low-dose CT lung screening program at St. Francis probably about 7 years ago. Methodists in Proctor and Pekin also do low-dose CT lung screenings. The age-adjusted death rate in Peoria County from the years 2011 through 2015 was 86.9% for lung cancer, 84.3% in Tazewell, 56.6% in Woodford. As of 2020, it was 42.8% in Peoria, 42.3% in Tazewell, and 38.5% in Woodford. And a lot of that has to do with taking high-risk people who have smoked and are of a certain age and doing CT scans to test to see if there's any disease there. And it has significantly lowered the age-adjusted death rate. Timely diagnosis and staging, I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Evidence-based best practice treatment. We have a concept at OSF where we bring multidisciplinary teams together. Radiation oncologists, medical oncologists, gastroenterologists, surgeons, APNs, to discuss your case. And then they'll determine what's the best path of treatment, sit down with you and your family and discuss options. But we like to have all of those disciplines there to think about, well, what do you think of this course of treatment? What do you think of this? Can we work together on this? It has really worked very well for us. As we get through treatment into surveillance and survivorship, we are just rolling out a survivorship navigation program that's going to have, you're going to have in between those bubbles, you'll see those arrows that say supportive services. We offer nurse navigators to help coordinate your care, counselors, dietitians, a financial navigator, which is very important. I have seen people who have avoided treatment because they didn't want to leave their family with too much of a financial burden. That should not happen. We need to help people find a way. There are foundations out there. There are people that don't realize what their insurance can do for them. There are people that could get on insurance that we can help get on. And there's also Sisters Charity, and there are ways to get it done. But we want to make sure people understand that. So the Survivorship Navigator program we're about to start, we want to have a good handoff between the acute care navigator and the survivorship navigator to help you into that surveillance time and to help you maximize your diet and exercise, stay as healthy as you can to prevent recurrence. So again, this is kind of what drives us. Everything we do, we try to wrap into that continuum. That's our mission statement. I know we're a little pressed for time, so I'll keep moving here. So now we get into the building. For those of you aware of the campus, there's Glen Oak Avenue kind of going at a 45-degree angle. The Cancer Center, the Cancer Institute building, is a 4-story building plus a garden level. The Proton's on the garden level. It's kind of dug into the bank of the ground there. There's a new parking structure with a bridge that you can walk across into the Cancer Center. In Missouri Avenue, which now stops at Armstrong Avenue, will come all the way through and meet Glen Oak Avenue. There is a landscaped area. You'll see that landscaped area. You're going to see in the building a lot of glass that looks out over that landscaped area. We want patients to be able to see, have a lot of light come in, to be able to see the beautiful landscaped area. That path represents the path of all of us through our life and our relationship with this disease. This is a little close-up of the landscaped area. We have devotional statuary. We have multiple devotional statuary, water features, gathering spaces, contemplation areas. There's the kitchen garden for how we can use fresh produce in our classes that we're going to be producing there. This is the building. You see all the glass there. This is on Glen Oak Avenue looking down the newly constructed Missouri Avenue, and there's a bridge that goes across into the building. Here's from Armstrong. You again see all the glass of the building. You can see where you can drop your loved ones off right at the door there, or you could park in the new deck and come across the bridge. Here's a look as you've gone to Glen Oak to that traffic circle. You're kind of starting to go down Armstrong. You can again see all of the glass. The garden levels down at the bottom, kind of that middle glassed in area is where we will be doing infusions. We really want someone getting an infusion who's going to be there for multiple hours to be able to look out and see beauty and have light and not be in a closed in little space. You can see on the first floor, there's a side entrance on an elevated terrace there. That's where the cafe is going to be. When we were talking to people who wanted to come in and run that cafe, we of course wanted them to offer various types of fare there that if you're working there or come in there, you'd want to have. But we also want them to know who will be coming in there. There will be people with head and neck cancer who may have a hard time swallowing. There'll be people that don't have much. So we want to have things like smoothies, Boost and what have you to kind of help people take in that nourishment as much as they can. This is the garden level. You can see the ceiling and floor has some features that represent, again, a pathway, an organic pathway that we all follow on the cancer continuum. That is the teaching kitchen you see there, the glassed in area. I'll have a little better picture of that later. Back in the corner to the left of the teaching kitchen is physical therapy. We have physical therapy in this building because it's very important to stay active. Studies have shown that as active as you can stay during cancer treatment, the better your outcomes will be. If we can get your activity level up before treatment, during treatment, and then on into survivorship, then we can get you on that diet and exercise program to really start lowering the risk of recurrence. And if you should get recurrence, you'll be strong and healthy to be able to fight it. Just to the very left where you see a lady, I think with a cane or a walker there, that's where proton therapy is going to be. And I'm going to talk in a little bit more about proton therapy. We're very excited to be bringing proton therapy to this community. And I'll speak a little more about what that's like. Here's, again, on the first floor where you would come in on the street level, central registration there. This floor has a full diagnostic suite. What we want to do with this suite is that when someone is suspected of cancer, we will bring them here and do a full day of what we call stack testing, where you will get your lab work, a CT, an MRI, a PET CT, what have you. You'll have an itinerary. We'll assist you through your day, getting all that testing done so we can get that information to that multidisciplinary team to discuss the case and shrink that time to treatment. If you get a cancer diagnosis, you don't want to be waiting weeks and months. I know if it were me, I'd want to say, okay, what's next? What do we do next? We want to keep that what's next coming, and we want you to know and understand what is next. Here's a teaching kitchen. This will be outfitted with the ability to teach a class right in the room, but it will also be outfitted with the technology that when we're having a cancer symposium day, an educational day up in our conference center on the first floor, what's ever being done here can be part of that symposium, an hour-long teaching demonstration, for example. We're also going to be doing a library of on-demand classes that our navigators, as part of their education, might say, here, I got a list of some classes I'd like you to watch, and our dietitian can kind of help you if you'd like to get more further information. Okay, so here's some dates. Groundbreaking late spring. We actually just had the groundbreaking. There's been work being done on the site for a while, but we just had the groundbreaking on Tuesday. We are still on pace to have proton therapy equipment delivered in June of 2022, with a target for the first proton therapy patient in September of 2023. Excuse me. So you'll notice there's a year there. It takes a year to get that proton equipment, the cyclotron, all of it installed, all of it calibrated, all of it accepted, to arrange the beam to very accurately be placed exactly where we want it. That takes time, it takes calibration, it takes work with a physicist team. So we will be hiring a proton physicist probably around February to be here and be ready for the delivery of that equipment. Varian is the company we're buying the proton beam from. They will be on site really for the life of this proton therapy unit. They have engineers on site that will be helping us. And again, September of 2023 is when we're shooting for that first treatment. So I want to say a little bit about proton therapy. Some of you may have heard about it in the news. What is it? Why do we want to bring it to Peoria? When we are treating cancer, there's various ways to treat cancer. You can cut the cancer cells out of your body. You can have surgery. That's a great way to do it. You got to be careful whether you're getting all the margins, because if you don't get it all, it will continue to grow. One thing about cancer cells is cancer cells don't like to be bothered. They're very good at replicating and growing. You bother them a little bit and they don't like that. Our normal cells can be bothered and recover. You think about if I go out in the sun and I'm not wearing sunscreen, I'm out there all afternoon, my skin cells suffer damage. I will have a sunburn, it'll be itchy, it'll be sore, but that's not the permanent state. I don't still have the sunburn I had at 12 years old where I was outside all day without a shirt on. Your cells repair themselves. Cancer cells don't do that as well. So we have ways to heat up cancer cells. We have a microwave ablation unit where we use a probe and we heat up cancer cells. We have cryoablation where we have a probe and we freeze cancer cells. Again, they don't like that. They die off. The body rids itself of the cells. Chemical damage is another way. Chemotherapy. So there are chemicals that damage the cells. They're also hard on the rest of your cells. You get sick sometimes with chemotherapy. But again, your normal cells repair themselves. The cancer cells die off. At least if the chemo is targeted well, there's a good chance the cells will die off. And finally, one of the ways I want to talk about is radiation. We can introduce radiation to the body that will damage cells. It could affect normal tissue. The normal tissue fixes itself. The radiation affects the cancer cells and the body rids themselves of the cancer cells. The thing about most of the time when we're doing radiation, we do X-ray radiation. With protons, we use proton radiation. When it enters the body, and it's the X-rays is the green pathway there, the green curve. It comes in at its highest level, it goes through the body, and it's releasing energy as it goes. We use robotic couches and 3D imaging and planning to put the body in just the right place so the X-rays go through to where they don't touch much of the normal tissue. They release energy into the abnormal tissue. Protons comes in at a lower energy. It is the red peak. So it comes in at a much lower energy, slows down, eventually stops, and releases all of its energy in one spot. It doesn't have an exit dose to the body. So we use magnets to manipulate the beam, and we're going to paint those Bragg peaks throughout the tumor. And that lets you be very, very precise. It lets you do some therapy that you wouldn't have with radiation because tumor might have been wrapped around some essential vascular or cells, or I'm sorry, organs that you may want to stay away from that exit dose. But protons let you be very exact with it, and it opens up the ability to treat more people. It's one of the reasons it's very big for children. You don't want to give a lot of radiation to a child because their organs are developing. But with protons, you can just target it to the tumor and not affect normal cells. So I'll speed it up here a little bit. Here is on the right X-ray coming in at a higher dose. It loses energy as it goes through, and there's an exit dose. Proton therapy comes in, less dose. It releases its energy at the tumor site. There is no exit dose. That's the beauty of proton therapy. When would we use proton therapy? When you have to attack a vital organ, or there's some vital vasculature that you can't use the angulation, the gating. Gating is another thing we do. Gating is where we hook you up to monitors, and the machine learns your breathing pattern. So it can correct for the movement of your lungs. So when the robotic couch, the 3D planning, the gating isn't enough to assure that we're not going to damage something that shouldn't be damaged, then protons might come into play. We'll be able to treat someone who we may have said radiation isn't an option for you. So what I don't want you to think is that modern photon or X-ray therapy is dangerous. It is not. We have a lot of technology that lets us limit the exposure to normal tissue. Protons lets us kind of go that extra mile where if we're having trouble getting you angulated just right, we can use protons. An example is a complex left breast cancer. What we have found over the years with a complex cancer of the left breast where you get chemo, surgery, and radiation, that radiation therapy to the left breast can cause down the road a higher chance for coronary artery disease. Could create some scarring in the coronary artery that could lead to disease. So you will see sometimes breast cancer isn't approved for proton therapy, but in some cases it may be for that very complex case that's going to need some left breast radiation. Then protons would come into play where you can avoid that coronary artery. Flash technology, we are going to be one of about 5 centers in the country that have flash technology. We'll be about 35th proton unit. The only one outside of Chicago and Illinois. There are none in Iowa, one being built in Indiana, one in St. Louis. But we will be the only ones with flash technology. That's a new technology where we can deliver a very high dose of protons in less than a second. We can treat areas previously untreatable right, due to movement. If you're doing less than a second, your body's not going to move much. If you're doing a treatment that takes 15, 20 minutes and we tell you to hold still, that's a lot to ask to continue to hold still for that long. We can give up to 100 times the usual dose and do the entire treatment regimen in one treatment. Radiation therapy can sometimes be a Monday through Friday thing for 3 or 4 weeks. To make this one dose and you're done will open the door for somebody to travel from the Quad Cities, for example, to come over here and have treatment, or from Indiana or from Iowa, because you can get most of your work done in your home community. Come in for this. We'll have the ability to conference with your physicians, do the treatment, send you home, reconference with your physicians about the after visit summary. So that's flash technology. Okay, real quickly, garden level proton therapy, brachytherapy. We're going to have a brachytherapy suite in the building that is a surgical suite with a CT on rails in it. It works very well with prostate cancer and ovarian cancer. You will be put to sleep. We will put needle guides in, essentially hollow needles that we will put in and put them right at the tumor bed. We will then bring the CT in, do a CT. Our dosimetrists and physicists will plan your treatment. Then we will utilize those guides to put high dose radioactive sources down in those needle guides and treat your tumor. Pull them back out, wake you up, recover from anesthesia, and you'll go home. We have had much better long-term results with brachytherapy than prostatectomy, for example. a lot less incontinence, for example, a lot fewer complications post-treatment. It's a very good treatment, and we think with everything we have there, with the CT right in the suite, there's an MRI connected to it as well, because gynonc cases are better treated with MRI, better planned with MRI. We're going to have everything we need there to do this quickly, efficiently. It's growing in the amount of brachytherapy that we're doing now. Physical therapy, I talked about. The teaching kitchen, we have a community room that we can have classes in. It's kind of going to be where we stage our on-demand exercise classes. We have an exercise physiologist who's going to do classes for us there. First floor, the whole diagnostic suite, as I talked about. The conference center, I want to talk briefly about the conference center. It is a large conference center that we will have all of our multidisciplinary conferences in, and where we discuss cases. We can have physicians from other areas take part, and bringing all of those providers together to plan care has been very powerful for us. Second floor, we'll have an infusion space, a shared clinical space. One last thing I would like to cover with you that we're very excited about. In that shared clinical space, we will have different cancer type clinics on different days, and we will have a team there, rad-onc, med-onc, could be a radiologist, could be depending on the cancer, could be a gastroenterologist, could be a surgeon. We'll go into one room and discuss your case. We have several small exam suites where there's an exam room on one side. Through an internal door, you go into a small conference room, and you can sit down with your family, with this team, with the technology in there, that maybe your daughter's in Dallas and you want she's the power of attorney, you want her to hear this conversation, be able to ask her questions. Maybe your doctor back home, you want to be on there and ask questions. So there will be an interactive team that can sit down there and have a discussion with you about your possible treatment plans. And we will also introduce our supportive services, our counselor, our financial navigator, introduce you to your RN navigator who's going to help coordinate your care. The whole idea is to know that you're fully supported. You're not fighting this alone. There's a lot of different people, physicians you have to go see. We don't want you to worry about when you have to do that. We want to coordinate that for you. Tee up as much as we can in this building. And again, this building to us is much more than bricks and mortar. It is our commitment embodied to really do all we can for our community to deal with cancer, prevent cancer, find it early, all of those things. Any questions for me? Yes. So Illinois Cancer Care is the primary medical oncologist practice in this area throughout the region. They are going to be on the third floor. We were planning this week for what their clinic is going to look like. They will see OSF patients there. They probably will see some of them out on Route 91 as well, but they will be in that building. They'll come down to that second floor to be part of those multidisciplinary discussions, and we'll meet patients there. They're fully committed to being our partner in this building and what we're doing, trying to raise the level of cancer care, trying to get to where we can compete with, believe it or not, the most leakage from our community here to another site for cancer care is Iowa City. It's not Mayo, it's not MD Anderson, it's not Northwestern, it's Iowa City. We want to be able to offer enough here that you know you're fully supported, that you have the best of care, and ICC is a big part of that, that you don't have to leave, that we can support you here. University of Illinois, that we are still kind of talking with University of Illinois. The fourth floor of this building, when it opens, will be shelled, but it's earmarked for research. And they're doing a lot of technical resource and the technical tools that can help fight cancer and help monitor response to treatment and surveillance and that type of thing. they need clinical sites to try to do that with. We can be that clinical site for them. So I don't have anything in stone to tell you, but there are ongoing talks that we can benefit one another greatly with what we're trying to do.